So welcome to the NAPI team meeting for September 4th, 2018. Before we get started, apologies to everybody who may have missed the meeting or are watching afterwards, because I had something I couldn't get away from, and so we're starting quite a few minutes late. So we may have a few people who couldn't make it or did make it, but didn't stick around because it was uncertain. We'll start out now then with our standard agenda. So we'll look at our milestones. I guess first of all, does anybody have any announcements or discussion items they want to share?
No.
No? Okay, so I'm going to look at milestone 11. I will share that. Okay, so this is an issue we discussed last week about investigating how NAPI might have helped avoid some of the breakages that were reported in 2274 as we attempted to upgrade to, Node attempted to upgrade to version 7. Hitesh posted in a nice summary that came from Jal Grace in terms of the modules that were impacted. And it does sound like a number of them we have either started or had thought about doing ports. Level down, I guess that's one. Yeah, so we have an API port. He does mention we should actually work on getting that into the repo and accepted. May need some updates as well. But it seems like a mixture of ones we have ports which we either need to get in, or there was one which is Node report that isn't a good candidate, but that one actually there's an effort to push to sort of meld that into core itself, which would address that, which is good. And so I think there was really only one then level that we wouldn't quite sure of. And so, like, in the full NAPI world, and Node report having gone into core, these regressions wouldn't have happened. So that's actually good news. Anybody have any questions or things that we want to discuss on that front?
I'm good.
Okay, so investigate use of prebuild with NAPI. Jim, I know you're working on that.
Yeah, so it landed last Thursday afternoon. So yeah, so we're happy about that.
Okay, so should I close this issue?
I think so.
Done?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're good.
Excellent. Jim reported. Okay. I'm sure that's, how do I spell hooray? Hooray. Okay. Okay, good stuff. Well, very good work there. Thanks a lot. And that's another key point that you've helped take down. SQLite port. So I did meet with Anisha this week. Unfortunately, it actually seems to be a bit more complicated. So she hadn't made any progress in figuring out the actual hang, but when we were looking through the code, the one thing I noticed is it was actually still using libuv directly to do a bunch of its asynchronous work. So we really have some more work there before I think we'd call it an API port. So what we agreed was she should go back and look at pulling out the use of libuv and replacing it with what we have in Node add-on API, and potentially even some direct calls into an API. And then, we'll see at that point if it's related. I wouldn't be terribly surprised if it was related in terms of, we have done things like NAPI fatal exception and stuff, because you have to do some special things for when exceptions happen asynchronously. And so the problems we were seeing may be tied in with the fact that we were still using libuv directly in those few places. So that's where we're at on that one. Burning down the list of issues raised by module owners. I'm not aware of any. I don't know if anybody else has looked and seen anything new recently that we should discuss.
No, I haven't seen anything either.
Okay. So let's just continue on then. So that's good. We did close a number out. The ones we wanted to do a release, and Nick did a release, so that's great. Topics for NAPI Collaborator Summit. I think we don't think we need anything more on that. The milestone overview is there. We'll come back to that afterwards. as a sort of a high-level list of what we should do in this milestone, but we don't necessarily have issues open for. Creating the matrix of tested methods. So I don't think there's anything necessarily new specific in that in that issue, except that we are starting to see a few contributions to add to the coverage, which is great. So I think we're making progress on that front. Anything else people want to comment on that one? No? Okay, discussing how to advocate badges. I think, Gabriel, do you have
I updated the ABI stable, node repo README file, and that's going to land tonight after 6:24 p.m. Eastern. And so after
okay, that's very specific.
Well, 72 hours, right?
Yeah. Okay, right. Yes. Yeah, makes sense. Yep.
So it's going to land, and I mean, unless somebody interjects before then, and then I'm going to comment on the PR suggesting that the PR be redirected against the README in ABI stable node, and then it should land there, and then we will have something to point at.
Okay. Text on badges. Okay, sounds good. Oops, there we go. Document limitations of ABI stability offered by NAPI. Again, I think, Gabriel, you were pushing that one forward.
Yeah, so the only outstanding issue was to create a detailed sort of background information about what is ABI stability, etc. I should probably paste the link in there, because I did make a PR about that against Core. It's right here. Benjamin Grünbaum was very positive about it. He had a few nits, but overall it was positive. So there's the link.
Okay, let me find that link in the chat, and I'm going to, where is the chat? Okay. That in here.
Yeah, and Girish already approved it. So it needs one more approval, and I've already pinged Benjamin saying that please check the nits, because I've made changes, and one of them
I'll read through after the meeting and approve as well. So
okay, yeah, and if you find anything that needs fixing, then please. Yep. Yeah, so once that lands, we can link it from Node.js N-API, and then we can call it on this milestone item.
Excellent. Okay, will do. Just interactive community corner session. I don't think we needed to do anything more on that. And then the NAPI workshop. I don't know, Jim, if you
we had just one thing is updating the contributors page.
Okay.
And so I did some research this week, and I went through the ABI stable node and the node add-on ABI projects.
Yep.
And each of those lists a list of participants. And I'll put that list in the chat so everybody can see that. So that's the list of people who are on the websites.
Okay.
So we could make that the list of people that we put on the contributors. There's a second list of people who are listed as authors on those two repositories.
Yep.
Let me put that list up now.
The first question I'd have is, like, the list you just pasted.
Yes.
The first list, does that does our existing page cover everybody who was there?
Between the two pages, it's everybody down to Taylor. So I'm not sure I understand your question, Michael.
So we have an existing slide. I think that slide has.
Oh yeah.
Does that slide have everybody from the first one?
Yeah, I need to look at that, Michael. I haven't gone that. It was a question of who we wanted on there.
Right. Because I know we had some additional people on there who were like people who helped review the original concept,
Okay.
and so I'm not sure we necessarily want to remove them
Okay.
yet.
Okay.
But it is important that, say, the first list, that everybody is there, because they're like, actively part of the teams and stuff pushing it forward.
Okay. So maybe make sure that everybody who's on the public websites are on the contributors slide, but don't take anybody off.
Right.
Okay. One thing I noticed is Kyle is not on the public websites as a participant.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, I guess in terms of being part of the node of this team,
right,
that is probably something we should fix, right?
Yeah, I would think.
Okay. So Kyle, do you want to submit a PR?
Sure, I can do that. Is it just to the README?
Yeah, the node add-on, and if you do that, once that lands, we can add you to the actual team that gets that mentioned and everything as well.
Okay, yeah, I can do that.
Okay, so I will update this slide this week, making sure everybody who's on the public websites are also on that contributors page.
Right. Now I see a few people like Corey, Jason, Ian. We have the concept of emeritus now across the project. It may make sense to move some of them to emeritus since they're not actively involved anymore.
Okay. So what would that process look like?
What we've done for other repos is actually followed a process where we've said, we're going to post an issue and mention everybody in that issue that says, hey, we're doing a membership review. Just ping here if you still plan to be active.
All right.
And if somebody says, hey, yeah, I still plan to participate, then they stay. If after 2 weeks we haven't heard, we then remind people, and there's another 2 weeks. And so basically, if there's somebody who doesn't even respond after 4 weeks, then we'll move them to emeritus. And if, for example, they came back within the next month, it's still like, oh yeah, sure, you're back in, right?
Right.
So there's actually, if you look in the diagnostics repo or the benchmarking repo, there's an issue that would be like, membership review, and you can see, I basically just reused that exact same text.
Okay. So yeah, I could. So I can do that, Michael.
Yeah, that'd be great, because I think it's just a nice, independent, neutral way of saying, hey, who's still involved, and if you're not, then we've moved the people to emeritus. It's still like the thank you for having participated, but it gives a more accurate view of who's participating day to day.
Okay, good. I'll make that happen.
Okay. And then I would almost like, so we have the one page with the first page. I wonder if we should maybe, like, in the workshop we have lots of time, so maybe we could add a second page and say, well, and we're getting, we're starting to get additional just contributors, and here's a list of the list of the other people who've contributed to, and that's Node add-on API, right? Because now there's even more people who have contributed to NAPI itself directly in core.
Right.
So that slide could basically say, well, now that NAPI is in core, it's just, there's been lots of contributors, making changes across the board. We won't list them. But also, in Node add-on API, here are some contributors that we've seen join and participate there. That makes sense to people.
Okay, perfect. Okay. All right. And other than that, I think we're good. I've got to work on my tutorial for pre-build, but now that that's landed, that should happen pretty quickly.
Okay, sounds good. And I guess, Kyle, you were going to follow up with Hitesh on the generator side?
Yeah, we haven't made any progress on that yet. I can take a look and see if I can take a stab at it over the weekend and see if I can get something done. Like I did make a pass at just getting dependencies cleaned up on it. It was a little bit like broken. It was still using the old node security package or whatever it is, which apparently has been deprecated.
NSP?
Yeah.
Okay.
They apparently got rid of it in favor of just node or npm audit.
Yeah, it was discontinued. I didn't know
Yeah.
that we would have been using it for anything though.
He had it hooked up in just the generator is all.
Okay.
So I cleaned that up a bit, and I have a PR out for that, but I can take a look at trying to modify the generator now and get, because I think we just wanted an option for basically different types of projects to create, right? Like
Yeah, it was
World
like
versus, I think we have a NAPI wrap essentially, or an object wrap.
exactly. We
Okay.
wanted like the real first thing, which is just a hello world, and then the existing one, which was the wrap. That's two different options.
Yeah, I think that should be relatively easy. I'll give it a try this weekend and see. I'll try and get I'll update an issue or something on the ABI stable node if I get it done, and so people can take a look.
Okay, sounds good.
Yep.
Okay. And let's just then loop back to the milestone overview to see async. Okay, so we still have to focus on async worker. I haven't had any time to think about that. I think once we get back from the conference, maybe we can do that. Evangelism, prepare presentation. I'm still working with Runish. We have a walkthrough tomorrow, so we should be getting pretty close. It's been updated since I think I sent everybody here my initial version, but it's actually changed a reasonable amount since then. It has a bit more of the back with like code samples, shape of the API. I added a very simple demo, which it uses the demo that we used before, but it's pre-recorded and is about a minute, where it just starts up with and without NAPI, showing that, well, look, with NAPI, you can NVM up to version 10 if you're upgrading from 8, and it just works. Oh, but if you do the same thing with the non-NAPI version, it just falls over telling you, you have a version mismatch. So, and then a little bit of reordering stuff, but I don't think there'll be any real surprises in that. The birds of a feather we talked about, the breakout session we talked about, badges, workshop, yeah. The Node add-on examples. So I know actually that's a good one, Gabriel. You've basically done that.
Yeah, I actually added some examples in PRs for which I would request some review.
Okay.
I added both of the thread safe ones.
Yep.
And I also added one for multiply loading a module, which uses the worker thing. So I set the engine to like 10.10 for that one, because it needs to have both the workers, and it has to have this this macro that I added a while back to core, which is this Node add-on or Node module init for V8 modules and NAPI module init for NAPI modules. And so that one basically shows how to avoid using global static data so that you can have the module load twice. And the actual demo uses a worker thread to do the same thing on two different threads at the same time. And so
okay.
So that actually showcases worker threads as well.
Okay.
To some extent. It's a very, very simple showcase of it, but it does work. It's actually simpler than what the documentation shows.
Okay.
In the actual reference. So yeah, I need reviews for that one, for those 3 PRs, I guess, and then we can go with those. And actually, I was thinking let me remember. Yes, for the last one, for this multiple loading one, we could actually add links to those examples to the reference, because the documentation for both of these macros, they do mention that they are there so that modules might be context aware, and so this context awareness is also shown by this example. So we could link back to the example, though I'm not sure what the policy has been of late, since we had archived the examples. Then I suppose the links from the API reference have disappeared in favor of just embedding the examples literally into the reference. But now that the repo is back, we could start linking to it or not. I don't know what the general feeling will be about that.
Yeah, I don't know off the top of my head either. Now, I mean, it being archived, the existing links would still have been okay, right?
Yes.
It just couldn't be.
Broken.
So yeah. The other thing that Nicola brought up is that there's a bunch of old issues that we inherited when we merged the new repo back, right? So we probably need a pass to go through and say, this really isn't relevant anymore.
Yeah, I've seen you and Nicola. You guys closed some of them, I think. But
yeah, I closed a few, and maybe there will be some that are relevant, and we should figure out what to do with.
Yeah. I was also thinking, like in the PR with the workers, I changed the binding JIP for the NAPI one to have the pedantic sort of compilation settings that Node add-on API has. But I noticed that I can't do the same for the V8 version because the V8 headers themselves produce a bunch of warnings, which they wouldn't otherwise, and so it turned into errors, and so that kind of doesn't work. So I was wondering, what do you think about adding those flags to the NAPI examples? Should we or should we not? Does that make it too restrictive for people?
I mean,
they are examples, right?
Yeah, you're not. I mean, and you don't have to reuse the same flags necessarily if you're copying, reusing the code or anything.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, we could have them. Yeah, I mean, it's up.
They're just flags in the binding.jip.
Yeah.
And anybody who checks out, they should just work, right?
Oh yeah.
I guess the one concern might be, do we really know that that's the case across all platforms? Like in terms of the NAPI itself, we actually have that CI job which runs everywhere.
True, yeah, but we don't have it for the examples.
Exactly. So it's almost like before we did that, we should actually have a CI job which checks out the examples and runs them all.
Yeah, or at least builds them all.
Yeah,
because there's nothing really to run because the examples are not they're not systematic enough so that you can actually validate the output. But at least building them would be good.
Right. I mean, that would be a good thing to have regardless. It's just we'd have to do some work. So.
Yeah.
But I think that would likely be a prereq for turning those on.
True. Yeah. Okay. Then I'll take them off for now, and I can just paste them in locally to make sure that there really are no warnings, and so that I don't submit code that has warnings in them. It. But yeah, okay.
But you'll only know on your one platform, right?
Well, yeah, but at least that's one platform more.
Oh yeah, it's better than nothing, for sure. But yeah, no. So yeah, if we got all of our other work done, that would be a good one, is to have a CI job that actually builds those.
The big outstanding question is always Visual Studio, because Visual Studio can be very, very pedantic to start with, and it will have lots of yellow text in there.
Yeah.
And so a CI job for that would be really good.
Yeah. Yeah. We should at least maybe open an issue that says, should I do that right now? So like, so I'm just going to create an issue that says new issue, add CI job, testing that validates examples in Node.js / add-on examples. All right.
But is Node add-on API the right repo to add this issue? Should this not be an ABI stable node?
Yes. Okay, you're right. That's where I was thinking I was doing it.
Yeah, I mean, that's another thing I could add is a Node add-on API version of things. I haven't added it yet, but I oughta.
Yes, you mean of those things?
Yes. Well, the threat safe ones I can only do an API because they don't actually exist anywhere except in an API. But for the multiple load one, I should definitely do a Node add-on API one.
Yes. And I guess even for the other one, it would be good to add an issue to Node add-on API, say add wrappers for blah.
Yes. Yeah, I don't know though, because I'm not sure how we would go about bringing in thread safe function, because it is experimental, right? And we don't yet have support for anything experimental in Node add-on API. And you know,
that's big into still experimental, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, so we have that in Node add-on API.
Okay, good.
We have
good,
testing.
okay.
Like I actually had to go and unbreak that because.
Oh yeah. You added support for NAPI experimental in there.
Yeah, so it is. There is a basically I ended up having to have the tests in a separate file. The file only gets loaded, and so we can't add stuff, and it's basically guarded by just like the versions. If you don't specify experimental, you won't be able to build against it.
Okay. Okay, so issue to add wrappers for TSFN, yes, and then Node add-on API version of multiple load.
Like if anything, just open an issue though, right? Because it's like I'm not saying you have to do all that work, but having it visible that this is something somebody could do is good if it's.
Yeah. No, the work item that I made for myself is to file the issue.
Yeah. Okay, good. I just didn't want to make it sound like I was trying to give you tons of work.
No. I didn't take it that way, but
okay, great.
I did make this point. So remove W error from multiple loads. Yeah. Okay. So I was gonna ask, like, with Node add-on API, we still have, I mean, 6 is still in maintenance mode, and 8 still has versions which don't ship an ABI compatible version of NAPI. But as
sorry, say that again. Oh, has versions? Yes. Yep.
Yes. Before 8.6.
Yep.
So, but as those start edging closer to, being unmaintained, will Node add-on API eventually transition into no longer providing like a static version of an API?
I would say yes.
Because I was thinking, like, we could on the other hand, I'm not sure if this is feasible, but we could on the other hand maintain this we do everything else that you don't have in perpetuity. Like, for example, if version X of Node doesn't have thread safe function, then the thread safe function APIs can be compiled as a static library, and everything else is dynamic. But I don't know.
I don't know. I mean,
that's
like if we're in a position where we think that that's a huge barrier to adoption and whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe, but I would be more for the argument we need to backport that stuff.
Yeah, true. Yeah, if it's that important, it should be in core, right?
Right, because you don't get the full compile once, run everywhere. You're still down to, well, okay, you can build your module, but you still have to have separate binaries. And
exactly, and we're just in a sense we're just prolonging the delivering on our promise.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
So I would be more like, if it's really important, let's make the case for a backport.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's like people can wait until. And if we learn it's a big problem, then we should readjust. But
yeah, okay, good. Yeah. I'm kind of leaning that way too, and it's good to know that you are also.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Okay.
So then,
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no. I was just gonna look over the points that I made one more time, and I think I know what I need to do then.
Sounds good. And so yes, I think there we just our action was to as well look through some of the old issues, see if we can kind of prune those.
Yeah.
And then finally, the last bit was expanding the test suite, which I think we already talked about. So I think we're doing pretty well on the content we had for the milestone. Any other issues people want to talk about? If not, I'm really looking forward to seeing everybody in person again. And we have, I think, lots of good NAPI coverage for next week. So that should be great.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
And no call next week.
That's right. Yeah. I would. I guess, Kyle, are you going to make it to?
No, I won't be able to make it.
Okay.
So I will see you guys in 2 weeks.
I think Hitesh is, and I know Arunish is. So.
Yeah, that's to the best of my knowledge. Hitesh will be there. So.
Okay, but I think everybody else will be there who usually shows up. So we don't need to. Just making sure people know that we won't have a meeting.
Yep.
Okay, great.
Talk to you guys later.
Talk to everybody later. Thanks.
Later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.